Adolf Hitler and the Jesuit order, March 21st, 2018 by Rattler Rider. If there be any doubt about Hitler's close ties to the Jesuits, listen to his own words as recorded in 1939 by Hermann Roskning, former National Socialist chief of the Danzig government. Quote from Hitler: "I learn much from the order of the Jesuits," said Hitler. "Until now, there has never been anything more grandiose on the earth than the hierarchical organization of the Catholic Church. I transferred much of this organization into my own party. I am going to let you in on a secret. I'm founding an order. In my burghs of the order, we will raise up a youth which will make the world tremble." Hermann Roskning, former National Socialist chief of the government of Danzig. Hitler Emedit. Ed. Cooperation. Paris 1939. pp. 266, 267, 273 SS. According to Roskning, Hitler then stopped his speech, abruptly saying, "I can't say any more." However, after the war, Walter Schellenberg, former chief of German counterespionage, finished Hitler's speech, confirming Hitler's strong behind-the-scenes ties to the Vatican and the Jesuit order. The SS organization has been constituted by Himmler according to the principles of the Jesuit order. Their regulations and the spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius of Loyola were the model Himmler tried to copy exactly. Himmler's title as Supreme Chief of the SS was to be the equivalent to the Jesuit general, and the whole structure and direction was a close imitation of the Catholic Church's hierarchical order. And French writer Frederick Hoffert in 1948 wrote, "Hitler, Goebbels, Himmler and most of the members of the party's old guard were Catholics. It was not by accident that because of its chief's religion, the Nationalist Socialist government was the most Catholic Germany ever had. This kinship between socialism and Catholicism is most striking if we study closely the propaganda methods and the interior organization of the party. Quote by Hitler about he had been brought up in a Jesuit college and was a seminarist before devoting himself to literature and politics. Every page, every line of his writings recall the teaching of his masters, so he stresses and begins the contempt for truth. Some lies are as useful as bread," Goebbels once proclaimed, taking his words from extracts of Ignatius of Loyola's writings. The Third Reich is the first world power which not only acknowledges but also puts into practice the high principles of the papacy. And what essentially was put into practice was 25 million victims of concentration camps, the official figure once released by the United Nations. But do such barbaric acts belong to the past? By no means. Barbarianism continues today, as evidenced by the U.S. government's illegal invasion in the Middle East as well as its own siege on U.S. citizens by advancing a bogus war on terror. Adolf Hitler, although hidden by the scholars, Hitler's own words show the Third Reich was organized like the hierarchical organization of the Catholic Church, using Jesuit spiritual exercises. Certain things in history get lost in the shuffle, like Adolf Hitler's loyalty to the Vatican and his eternal gratitude paid to the Jesuit order. Hitler served the Catholic Church faithfully, and he wasn't afraid or ashamed in admitting his endless devotion to the Society of Jesus. And if one looks closely, President Obama has the same look, feel and rhetoric of a modern-day Hitler. In fact, he can be looked at as the Vatican's new boy on the block, or its Americana version of Hitler, as he pushes his fascist warmongering agenda on the people of the United States and the people of the world. And you can bet that the Vatican and the Jesuit order are behind everything. But the Vatican placed Adolf Hitler in power. For example, Knight of Malta Franz von Papen from the Centre Party helped the Nazis to receive political power in the German parliament. The Vatican entered into a concordat with Hitler, which was signed in the Vatican by von Papen and Cardinal Secretary of State Eugenio Pacelli, later Pope Pius I, on July 20th, 1933. As with Mussolini, Franco and Salazar, von Papen was the personal advisor to Pope Pius XI. Even the SS had been organized by Heinrich Himmler according to the principles of the Jesuit order. The rules of service and spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius de Loyola, ed. Note, the founder of the Jesuit order, constituted a model which Heinrich Himmler strove carefully to copy. Absolute obedience was the supreme rule. Every order had to be executed without comment. Walter Schellenberg, chief of the Nazi Sicherheitsdienst, quote by Spanish dictator Francisco Franco. Adolf Hitler, son of the Catholic Church, died while defending Christianity. It is therefore understandable that words cannot be found to lament over his death, when so many were found to exalt his life. Over his mortal remains stands his victorious moral figure. With the palm of the martyr, God gives Hitler the laurels of victory. Spanish dictator Francisco Franco, Knight of the Order of Christ, published on the 3rd of May 1945. The day of Hitler's death. Reform. 21st of July 1945. Fascism is the regime that corresponds most closely to the concepts of the Church of Rome. Quod Civilta Catholica, house organ of the Jesuits. Even his Mein Kampf book was written for Hitler by German Jesuits team also. A Vatican Nazi link is for real. The great author Jack Chick is absolutely correct to point to the Holocaust as a 20th century Inquisition. William Wild Bill Joseph Donovan is an elite Vatican personage. Donovan was a dedicated Roman Catholic until his death. He was the leader of the OSS. The OSS was the precursor of the CIA. Donovan was also a member of Phi Kappa Psi fraternity, and he graduated from Columbia in 1905. Being a veteran of World War I, he would get an abundance of military including intelligence experience in his life. He was awarded the Lateran Medal and the Knight Grand Cross of the Order of St. Sylvester. Many other directors of the CIA would be ironically Knights of Malta like William Casey. World War II ended in 1945 and the Nuremberg trials commenced. Roman Catholic Chris Dodd's father Thomas J. Dodd worked in the trials against the Nazis. Dodd worked with high-level Freemason Robert H. Jackson, 33rd degree Freemason Edward Carter was a fifth judge in the Nuremberg tribunal. Jesuit priest Edmund Walsh had a big role in the Nuremberg trials by advising Robert Jackson. Walsh was a friend of 33rd degree Freemason Douglas MacArthur and other elites. High-level Jesuit Walsh wore an officer's uniform when he apprehended General Karl Horshofer in Bavaria for interrogation at Nuremberg. The Jesuit Edmund Walsh had chatted with Grigory Zinoviev, who was president of the Petrograd Soviet. This proves that high-level Jesuits and high-level Freemasons worked together for centuries on many endeavors. That is why Knight of Malta Franz von Papen was acquitted in Nuremberg as a high-level Knight of Malta. He was above prosecution. The Vatican rat line allowed the Vatican to make Nazi, plus Ustashi, fascist war criminals to escape justice. They were smuggled into Argentina, Bolivia, Paraguay, Australia, Canada, and of course the US. Mark Herons and John Loftus wrote a book entitled Unholy Trinity Exposing the Ratlins. Nazi general and war criminal Reinhard Gehlen would work with the CIA. Gehlen also was given the highest honor of the Knights of Malta called the Grand Cross of Merit Award. Knight of Malta J. Peter Grace would be a key figure in Operation Paperclip, where Nazis war criminals were sent into America for technological reasons. According to State Department documents, Angleton decided to give money to an organization called Catholic Action and used it to help the right-wing win elections in Italy. The author Ralph Epperson documented in his literature about how the US government covertly gave information about atomic weaponry to the Soviets. This is one out of innumerable examples proving that the Cold War an utter hoax. Fidel Castro was trained by Catholic. Many Catholic bishops opposed Castro's dictatorship. For example, Miguel Angel Laredo, a Catholic priest, was arrested by the Cubans and sent to prison. He was beaten severely by Cuban prison guards and lay hospitalized. Although the leadership of the Vatican supported Castro clearly, Monsignor Cesar Zacchi was the Vatican's ambassador to Cuba. As the official representative of the Catholic Church, Zacchi avidly supported the communism of Fidel Castro. Zacchi extolled the virtues of the communist revolution and continually asked the young people in Cuba to join the communist revolutionary militia. In fact, Fidel Castro was the guest of honor at Zacchi's episcopal consecration. Fidel Castro was the honored guest of the Pope John Paul II at the Vatican in November of 1996, and the Pope in turn visited Castro in Cuba in January 1998. Both meetings were marked by cordiality, which puzzled and upset many in the American Cuban community, who don't yet understand the close ties between communists and the Vatican. The late John Paul II opposed the embargo against Cuba, the ecumenical movement, and the modern world. The modern ecumenical movement was invented by the Vatican via Vatican II Council in the early 1960s. Around this time, Pope John XXIII was a friend of liberation theology. He was Pope from 1958 to 1963. He wanted to talk to the communists when components of communism as a part of the New World Order agenda, from a central bank to the stealing of private property. Jesuit John Courtney Murray was called one of the architects of the Second Vatican Council. Vatican II's Dignitas Humani Personae claimed to support religious liberty. Yet, Vatican II never revoked the anti-religious freedom proclamations of the Council of Trent. This Vatican II Council promoted false Alexandrian corrupt Bible versions. Like the Niv is heavily influenced by Papal Knight of St. Gregory Rupert Murdoch. Murdoch had to apologize for a racist cartoon about Obama in the New York Post. The Niv and other modern version meet hundreds of words, and the compromise of many Protestant and Baptist churches. Just recently in 2007, Pope Benedict XV called non-Catholic churches defective. Therefore, Vatican II wasn't about reconciliation. It was about Rome trying to control all Christian churches via compromise. Today, famous ecumenicals include Pat Robertson, Billy Graham, Chuck Colson, even John Hagee, Robert Schaller, and Rick Warren. Billy Graham would praise the Roman Catholic Mass. The late Jerry Falwell was a part of the Moral Majority group. This organization had tons of Roman Catholics in its group. In his January 1985 Moral Majority report, Falwell called the Pope and Billy Graham great moral and religious leaders. Rick Warren, who loves the modern Bible versions. These versions were pro-Latin Vulgate, pro-Jesuit Council of Trent, Westcott and Hort Greek text, is a friend of pro-abortion President Barack Obama. Rick Warren is loved by the mainstream media because he is a 21st century version of a calculating, compromising professing Christian in America. He does talk about controversial issues much and even compared fundamental Christians to jihadists in an evil way. The ecumenical movement is about merging Christianity into a global system, basically, under the bigger goal of a one-world religion. That's why there are global religious organizations today wanting this goal, including theosophists. Cardinal Spellman is an important Cold War figure. In my opinion, he was the most powerful American clergyman of the 20th century. He had ties to the CIA, Chiang Kai-shek, President Roosevelt, MacArthur, the Pentagon, and Wall Street. Cardinal Spellman was nicknamed Cardinal Moneybags because of his immense wealth. Pope Pius XI greets Cardinal Spellman of New York City. Cardinal Spellman was a supporter for U.S. military involvement in Vietnam as early as the 1950s. In the 1960s, he would call the American soldiers fighting in Vietnam as the soldiers of Christ. Cardinal Spellman was pound for pound the most powerful clergyman in America during the 20th century. SMOM is short for the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, aka the Knights of Malta. The USA has its Knights of Malta, some of whom have used their influence to promote right-wing causes in South America during the Cold War. In Chile, Opus Dei sought support from Chilean bishops for the overthrow of President Salvador Allende. In Chile, Opus Dei worked closely with CIA-funded groups which later merged with the Chilean secret police. John Paul II made Opus Dei a personal prelature. John Paul II made Alfonso López Trujillo a cardinal. López Trujillo was a Colombian sympathizer with Opus Dei and an opponent of liberation theology. American Knights of Malta such as William Simon, Citicorp, and Francis X. Tankard, Chase Manhattan Bank, have spoken at Opus Dei meetings. Presently, the Knights of Malta, who exceeded since the 1100s AD according to William Cooper and Fritz Springmanier. Almost half of the Knights of Malta are in the black nobility families, still have great corporate power. Carl Nicholas Karcher, the head of Hades, and Thomas S. Monahan, head of Domino's Pizza, are all Knights of Malta. Knight of Malta Alexander D. Marsens was in the France intelligence agency called DECE. Knight of Malta Juan Carlos of Spain today, who is pictured with Bush, Pinochet, and other world leaders. Juan Carlos is a member of the Order of the Garter and the head of the Golden Fleece, is a significant force in Middle East negotiations. The Knights of Malta today are ruled by Matthew Festing, who is the worldwide Grand Master of the Knights of Malta. The SMOM Joseph E. Schmitz had ties with the mercenary Blackwater organization. Blackwater has been caught murdering Iraqis, even by American investigators. Their leadership has been in controversies spanning years now. Smomjiska Diesteping is a huge promoter of the European Union. And European Union has been a Vatican brainchild for centuries. Smom Frederick V. Salerno was the president of 9X Worldwide Services Group and a senior advisor to Gabelli Group Capital Partners. The Knights of Malta has been called the most exclusive club on earth, according to Stephen Birmingham, author of Real Ace, America's Irish Rich. Bush 41 was the director of the CIA during the 1970s. He was also awarded the Knight of Malta Award of Savoy. He was in World War II. He was a bonesman. George H.W. Bush is famous especially for calling for the existence of the New World Order in 1990 during his State of the Union address. He was awarded the Grand Cross of the Order of the Bath. One of his sons, named Jeb Bush, is also a member of the Knights of Columbus. Edward Dinligan of the Archdiocese of New York knighted Salerno to the Order of St. Gregory the Great in 2006. Salerno is on the board of Viacom and a member of the board of Hedrick and Struggles. Smom Joseph Ayonan, who is the founder. Goya Foods, the largest Hispanic-owned food company in the U.S. Tom Monahan is the founder of Domino's Pizza. Smom Jeffrey T. Bias is Trilateral Commission member and a leader in many corporate boards. This shows that Knights of Malta have many ties to the banking international elite. Even Rick Joyner, the false prophet on God TV, which is not God's TV, who wrote the Jesuit-inspired Templar Quest book, is a Knight of Malta. He is the charismatic Word of Faith, the Mennonist proponent who is really a Jesuit agent Protestant. Among Protestants, he claims to have visions about the kingdom of God on earth being man-made, but going on. This is unscriptural, of course. The Jesuit priest Greg Galuzzo founded the Gamaliel Foundation. This is a subsidiary of the Ford Foundation. Barack Obama worked for this Gamaliel Foundation in Chicago for years. Furthermore, Ann Dunham, who is Barack Obama's mother, worked for the Ford Foundation, as did the father of Timothy Geithner, Barack Obama's Secretary of the Treasury. Jesuit-trained John Favreau is Barack Obama's chief speechwriter. Obama's senior military and foreign policy advisor, Maj General J. Scott Gratian, was Jesuit-trained. Obama's national security advisor is James L. Jones, who was trained by Jesuits at Georgetown University. Jones is a retired four-star general and formerly served as Supreme Allied Commander Europe, 2003 to 2006. Until a few days ago, Jones was on the board of directors of Boeing. Obama's deputy communications director, Dan Pfeiffer, was Jesuit-trained. Barack Obama's CIA pick of Leon Panetta is Jesuit-trained. He entered Jesuit Santa Clara University in 1956, as well. Leon Panetta compromised and said that there will be no prosecutions for CIA interrogators who committed torture in the rendition program. It appears that the new Barack Obama administration have as much ties to the Vatican as the previous administration had. It's apparent that the Vatican Jesuit goal of ruling the world under the papacy hasn't ceased to function. This information about the Vatican's manipulation of world events, with the influence of the Jesuit Vatican network, is not shown in the mainstream media. Tony Blair is another prominent Roman Catholic. He is known for supporting immoral war in Iraq and expanding the police state in Britain to unheard-of levels. Blair has been speaking across the world now to promote ecumenicalism and the New World Order. That is why he is partnering with the Yale University Schools of Management and Divinity. Blair is doing this order to make his the Tony Blair Faith Foundation to use education as a means to bring about the New World Order. Tony Blair is a supporter of the pro-Knight of Malta Carlisle Group, with members like Roman Catholic Frank C. Carcluxy and Knight of Malta Award receiver George H.W. Bush. Bush would support the New World Order via a famous speech in 1990. That's why the leadership of America, Saudi Arabia, and even Israel work together. For example, the Bush family, the Bin Ladens, and Bandar all worked together in business endeavors for decades. In 1957, a treaty was signed in Rome that every man, woman and child in the United Kingdom will regret as long as they live. It was called the Treaty of Rome and marked the formation of what was then termed the Common Market. Ted Heath, Prime Minister at the time, now member of the Papal Order of the Garter ruled by the monarchy which really governs Westminster, took this country into the common. Ted Heath, as other Prime Ministers, are subordinate to the British monarchy market soon after. Today the European Union has taken over this country lock, stock and barrel. If you listen to the controlled media, you could easily assume that the European Union was a wholly secular entity. You would be gravely mistaken. The power behind the Union is not a bunch of politicians. It is in fact being steered by no other than the harlot church of the Book of Revelation. The Jesuit order are the puppet masters pulling the strings of every nation-state in the Union. We need to understand that there is something very sinister happening before our very eyes that will spell trouble for every true follower of Jesus Christ in this country as well as every nation in this amalgam of countries. The power behind Europe is the Jesuit or another Jesuit oath. I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity present, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants and liberals, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex or condition, and that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip out the stomachs and wombs of their women and crush their infants' heads against the walls, in order to annihilate forever their execrable race. That when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poison cup, the strangulating cord, the steel of the poignard or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons, whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed so to do by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith, of the Society of Jesus. If you care to take the time to research what the Roman Catholic institution have been up to in the last 60 to 70 years, you will find that she is as much a ravenous wolf now as she was in the days covered by Fox's Book of Martyrs. Thanks goes out to Alan Lamont.